Today is the 9th day in our Novena in honor of Our Lady of Lourdes and St. Bernadette. I'm here at St. Stephen's Catholic Church in Portland, Oregon, and this is a bottle of Lourdes water. This is the water from the miraculous spring that has been brought back from France, and it is something that pilgrims do. They bring back water from the spring to their homes to use. Now, if you have some of this in your cupboards, in your closets, among your things, use it. Don't let it go to waste. Use it. And if you have no use for it, give it to somebody who's sick so they can use it. Now, let's continue with our story. I'm reading here from the book Saint Bernadette Soubirous by Abbé François Trochu, published by Tan Books. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. This is a great read. If you're looking for some good Lenten spiritual reading, I'd highly recommend it. Now, you may recall that the previous apparition, Our Lady identified herself as the Immaculate Conception. That was on the feast of the Annunciation of the Blessed Virgin Mary. This was the week before Holy Week. So this is in Passiontide, and in Passiontide, so this is the week before we get to Palm Sunday. Now we get to Saturday of Palm Sunday, March 27th. A group of 3 doctors decided that they needed to examine Bernadette and report back to the mayor of the town on her physical and mental health. So these 3 professional men went to the school to fetch Bernadette among her companions. And they had to answer 2 questions. First, was this child suffering from a mental disorder? And second, was there any need to have her treated? Well, without even asking herself why these strangers had come to question her, Bernadette recounted her visions to them. And when copying out this account in the report which they sent to the mayor of Lourdes, they displayed a certain care for accuracy, but they distorted certain pieces of information because they had not seen the apparitions. They had received all their information about the apparitions secondhand. This is what they wrote. There is nothing to prove that Bernadette has had any intention of imposing upon the public. This child is of an impressionable nature. She has possibly been the victim of an hallucination. No doubt a reflection of light from the side of the grotto caught her attention. Her imagination, influenced by a mental predisposition, gave it a form such as impresses children, the form of those statues of the Virgin seen on altars. She relates her vision to her friends, and they drag her off to the grotto. The rumor spreads in the town. There are cries of miracle and apparition of the Virgin. Surely the young child's mind would be bound to be more and more affected by it, and her exaltation worked up to a peak. What was at first a mere hallucination gains more control over her mind, absorbs her more and more, and even isolates her from the outside world at the moment of the apparition. And there results a genuine state of ecstasy, a mental lesion that places the one affected by it under the domination of the absorbing idea. Examples of this kind are cited by the authors. And consequently, the undersigned consider that the girl Bernadette Soubirous may possibly have exhibited a state of ecstasy that has reoccurred several times. There is here a case of mental disease, the effects of which explain the phenomena of the vision. But while reading their report, delivered to him on Wednesday, the 31st of March, Monsieur Lacadet felt anxious to learn the final verdict. He breathed a sigh of relief. It was just what he himself had foreseen and desired. In fact, these Messieurs Lecrampe-Peroux and Balancy, the 3 doctors who wrote the report, who but a moment before had discovered a mental lesion in the young ecstatic, were content to declare at the end of their laborious report that she had no disease that she had a disease that was no disease at all, but was mere fatigue, which was quite curable without internment in hospital. Well, that was a relief. Now, Monsieur de Tours, who was the public prosecutor, had pondered a long time over the incidents at Massabielle, and he was going to lay before Monsieur Falconet, the Attorney General, on Good Friday, which was April 2nd, a few considerations tinged with skepticism, with irony even, but whose import and clear-sightedness are surprising. And here is what he had to write. Now, you recall he was one of the first to interview Bernadette. Without examining whether the report justifies placing Bernadette in hospital, I have doubts about the efficacy of the measure. The clergy of Lourdes, the curates at all events, are encouraging the pilgrimages to the grotto. The people feel drawn there. The municipal authorities seem little disposed to put any obstacles in the way. These pilgrimages will continue, whether Bernadette is present or not. The prefect is mistaken when he attributes the renewal of the movement, which had seemed bound to come to an end on March 4th, to the circumstance that Bernadette had begun her pilgrimages to the grotto again. Bernadette has reappeared at the grotto on but one single occasion, March 25th, Lady Day. It is no longer on the heels of this young girl that the crowd has returned there. In the very subdued role she now plays, she herself does no more than follow an impulse. Attention is concentrated more and more on the grotto. It is there that the Virgin deigned to appear. It is there that she wishes to be honored, in a chapel that must be built for her. It is there that souls come to drink from an inexhaustible spring of graces, and the bodies which are prey to sickness and sufferings find another spring, a visible and tangible one, in the waters gushing from the rock and possessing the precious virtue of relief and cure. Well, certainly, then, he believed that this was not to be cured by putting barricades around the grotto. And without realizing it, Monsieur de Tours uttered a prophecy. He continues, "It is certain that any kind of repressive measures will cause immense displeasure here. The grotto has become for Lourdes a cherished spot on various accounts. A piety, worthy in itself, but indiscreet in its enthusiasm and unsound in its object, has already turned the grotto into a revered and holy shrine. Credulity has converted it into a place of divine predilection and a scene of daily miracles. For the poor, it is the hope and pledge of abundant alms. For a large number of businesses, it is an opportunity for considerable profits." Those are the words of Monsieur de Tours. Now, let us get to the second to last apparition. Sitting on her school girl's bench, the little Subaru followed the Holy Week services. On Good Friday, when kissing the feet of the crucifix, she realized that, as down at the grotto, this was also for sinners. Starting from no one knew where, the rumor had spread during the morning that she would go to Massabielle in the early afternoon of Good Friday. This false rumor drew more than 600 people to the grotto, as the commissioner noted. They had scarcely arrived there when they were informed in my presence that the little one was not coming, and that she did not know if she would come. And the day passed, and Holy Saturday passed, and on Easter Sunday, April 4th, as we have already learned from a first-hand witness, Monsieur Estrade, the Lourdes church was full to overflowing during the hours of Mass, And that day from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m., there was a continuous stream of the faithful going to give thanks to Our Lady of Massabielle. The police commissioner counted them meticulously. They were in all 3,625 visitors to the grotto. And from morning to night the next day, the flow of pilgrims was even more considerable. 3,433 strangers and 2,012 Lourdes people, in all 5,445 visitors. The total of visitors for these 2 days is 9,070. Now, what would it have been had Bernadette gone down to Massabielle? The visionary, as Jacomet recorded on Easter Tuesday, April 6th, has not returned to the grotto since the Feast of the Annunciation. And then, on the evening of this same Tuesday, she felt once more in her heart the invitation of the Immaculate. Now, several days previously, some pious Lourdes women had put up on a flowered velvet carpet in the very hollow of the rock where the apparitions had taken place a small plaster statue, which would recall their memory. It was in front of this that Bernadette came and knelt about 6 o'clock on the Wednesday morning of Easter week. And already, as Monsieur Jacomet reported later, the grotto was surrounded by more than 1,200 people. All of them, to quote Monsieur Lacadet, were praying with great earnestness so that the most perfect order prevailed throughout. And soon in the hollow of the rock there was nothing for the child's enraptured gaze but the living Virgin with her ineffable smile. This ecstasy was to last about 3/4 of an hour, and 2 most attentive observers remained close to Bernadette. Monsieur Jacomet, who, with a view to a report, did not miss a single one of her actions, and Dr. Duzou, who followed her step by step, his eyes constantly fixed on her to study her case once more at leisure. And here's what he writes, or here's what the commissioner writes. Bernadette smiles, she bows, then she climbs up the space that separates her from the grotto and takes up her position there, motionless, smiling and bowing at intervals. Well, the last phase of this 17th apparition was marked by what has generally been termed the miracle of the candle. You see, Bernadette, on the testimony of Dr. Duzou, was holding a large blessed candle alight. And as the apparition continued, the candle gradually slipped down so that the flame was playing on the inside of her hand. But it did not burn her. The flame was on her hand for some time, and it didn't burn her. Well, the doctor then carried on with his experiment. As the ecstasy ended, the candle fell down. Abbé Joanna reports, I can still see Dr. Duzou taking the child's hand, still see him rub it with his right sleeve. There must have been a little smoke on it. Still hear him exclaim in a loud voice, there's nothing. These words were passed rapidly back to the furthest part of the crowd and caused a wave of excitement approaching delirium. But then the doctor lit the candle and put the flame on her hand, and the ecstasy over, she said, ouch, you're burning me. Well, this is known as the miracle of the candle. As mystic writers teach, the absorption in God that is produced by ecstasy is able to effect the suspension of the senses, even of the external senses, to such a degree as to render them completely impassible. Is it not recounted of St. Thomas Aquinas that being enraptured for a long time in God, he failed to notice that his torch was burning his fingers? Well, that's the end of the 17th apparition. Well, a fresh storm was gathering meanwhile, and here where the predestined woman was to set her virginal foot, Satan would strive to bite her heel. Now, you might remember back in February that the the demonic voices were yelling from the Gave, "Get out of here, get out!" And the Virgin had replied with a gesture of disgust which had sufficed. And now, having failed in direct attack, the devil would discredit Bernadette's visions. For several months in the Lourdes area, there raged a regular epidemic of visionaries, some of them obviously manipulated by occult forces, others the sport of their own temperament, whose weaknesses could be exploited by Satan for his perverse ends. There were fanatics, exhibitionists, lying maniacs, hysterics, half-wits, with a few tricksters thrown in, and there were exhibitions of contortions, fits of hysteria, grotesque and even indecent posturings, fainting attacks. To disentangle human trickery from the devil's deceits in all this would be more than a little difficult. In every case, a point of utmost importance stands out clearly. The suspect apparitions never showed themselves in the niche where Bernadette customarily saw Mary Immaculate, nor on the exact spot where Our Lady sometimes came to continue her conversations with the visionary. Now, for reasons of time, we're going to skip over the rest of that chapter, so you're just going to have to read that yourself. Now we're going to flip forward to the end of the visions. Let's see here. All right. Bernadette's first communion had been fixed for Thursday, June 3rd, which was the liturgical feast of the Blessed Sacrament, Corpus Christi. And in the examination which preceded the preparatory retreat, Bernadette appeared to have less knowledge than most of her young companions, but she was one of the most devout, and this consideration settled the matter. She prepared herself well, the dear child, Monsieur Estrade attested, and this sums up the evidence of Monsieur Périmal himself when writing to his bishop. Remember, Monsieur Périmal is the curé, the pastor of the parish. During the retreat which I gave to these children, her behavior, her recollection, her concentration was all that could be desired. She is developing wonderfully in every way. Well, on the occasion of this delightful and holy feast, wrote Monsieur Estrade, it was hoped in Lourdes that the little visionary would be favored with one of those angelic ecstasies that aroused the admiration of the crowds at the Massabielle rocks. There was nothing. Bernadette, her hands joined, advanced toward the altar, received her God within her virginal heart, and returned to her place without giving any other sign except that of an immense and profound happiness. During the visit with the child, which the child paid us, continued Monsieur Estrade, my sister asked her, "Tell me, Bernadette, which made you happier, receiving our Lord or conversing with the Blessed Virgin at the grotto?" Bernadette hesitated a moment and then replied, "I don't know. These two things go together and can't be compared. All I know is that I was intensely happy in both cases." It was not then until July 16th, the feast of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, that the final apparition was to take place. There was an unusual excitement in the streets that morning. To begin with, it was the annual feast of the Guild of Slate Workers. They came and heard Mass, grouped behind their banner on which sparkled the image of their patroness, Our Lady of Mount Carmel. Under this title, Our Lady had for 200 years had her chapel and altar in the Church of St. Peter in Lourdes. A large crowd escorted these fine quarrymen and received Holy Communion after them. Then, on that morning, all the friends of the grotto, who had the day before been pulling long faces, broke out into great rejoicing. As the curé termed it in his letter to his lordship, on the previous Monday, 3 Lourdes women, Cyprina Gesta, manageress of the public bakery, Anna Dupas, and Josephine Barang, set out for Pau, where they had to appear in the imperial court. Their crime? Spreading false news. They were alleged to have started seditious rumors that the emperor personally wanted the objects which had been removed from the grotto to be brought back, and that the empress had recommended herself to Bernadette's prayers. Well, during the evening, the little Subaru girl was again to be seen in the church. In the morning, out of devotion to Our Lady of Mount Carmel, whose scapular she had worn since her first communion, she had approached the holy table for the third or fourth time, observes Monsieur Estrade. For this fresh favor, she wished to renew her thanks. And now, while she was praying, the voice of the All-Beautiful, after more than 3 months' silence, made itself heard again in her heart. She made the sign of the cross, got up and went off to Lucille Castorose, the youngest of her aunts. Quick, quick, she had to go to the grotto. She was expected there. But aunt and niece knew very well that the meeting place was barricaded and inaccessible. They took the road by the castle, and several women from the La Paca district followed them. So there was the little group in the Ribera meadow opposite Massabielle. This right bank of the Gave was almost deserted. The time was about 8 o'clock. The day was closing in. From where they stood, so 8 o'clock in the evening, from where they stood, Bernadette and her companions could make out the vault by the grotto beyond the river. But the rest was hidden by the fence of planks. The tallest shoots of the eglantine were lost in the early shadows of night. Some other women who were praying there at this late hour came and joined the new arrivals. Bernadette took out her beads and knelt down, and they copied her. A few Hail Marys, and then the child, with a gesture of happy surprise, unclasped her hands and stretched them out toward the wonderful vision. Yes, yes, there she is, she exclaimed in the first thrill of her ecstasy. She is greeting us and smiling to us over the barrier. Bernadette declared later, she appeared to me in the usual place, but did not say anything to me. Never had I seen her looking so beautiful. After about a quarter of an hour, Our Lady of Lourdes ceased to show herself. But, as one of her great friends asked her afterward, how could you see her from the Ribera meadow? The Gave is so wide at that point, and the planks of the barrier come up so high. At that moment, Bernadette replied, I saw neither the Gave nor the planks. It seemed to me that the distance between the lady and myself was no greater than at other times. I saw only her. The 18th and last apparition. On earth it was goodbye, or rather au revoir, until the happiness of the next world. Bernadette concluded with a smile of resignation. Since then, I have not seen her anymore. And that will have to do for our account of the 18 apparitions at Lourdes. Of course, there's more to the story, but there's just no more time for us. So let us commence with our last day, our last Novena prayer, and we'll look forward to the feast of Our Lady of Lourdes tomorrow, February 11th. It'll be a joyous day. I'm remembering all of your intentions in my prayers. Please remember my intentions and all the intentions of those praying this novena. The 9th day. Dear Lady of Lourdes, today we bring to a close the novena in your honor. The past 9 days of prayer have been a source of happiness and consolation for us all. It has been a joy for us to come each day to pay our humble tribute of love and devotion to Jesus, to you, his blessed mother, and to Saint Bernadette. We feel strengthened and improved spiritually as a result of these days of prayer. But Mary, we want the graces and blessings of this novena to continue with us in the future. We want to keep our love and devotion fervent and strong in the weeks and months to come. But when we think of our weakness and instability, we are frightened. On this last day of the Novena, therefore, we beg of you with all our heart to protect us and help us to persevere in loving Jesus and you, his Immaculate Mother. When temptation begins to take hold on us and we begin to waver in our fidelity, then come quickly to our assistance. Blessed Lady, we have implored the help of your powerful intercession every day during this novena. Now at its conclusion, we again make known to you our needs. Here let us call to mind all of our intentions for this novena and all who have asked us for our prayers. We ask you to continue to plead for us before the throne of your divine Son. With confidence we leave our petitions in your keeping, for we know that no one ever sought your aid in vain. Saint Bernadette, accompany us during life with the protection and assistance of your prayers. May we learn from you to be humble and pure and obedient always to God's holy will. Saint Bernadette, pray for us. And let us sing the hymn of Lourdes. Ave, Ave, Ave Maria, Ave, Ave, Ave Maria. O Mary, our Mother, we come to this place where you who are sinless appeared full of grace. Ave, Ave, Ave Maria, Ave, Ave, Ave Maria. As Bernadette waited, there came to her sight a radiant lady surrounded by light. Ave, Ave, Ave Maria, Ave, Ave, Ave Maria. She gave her a message, let penance be done, and pray that all sinners may turn to my Son. Ave, Ave, Ave Maria, Ave, Ave, Ave Maria. Come here in procession to praise God and sing, to wash in these waters and drink at this spring. Ave, Ave, Ave Maria, Ave, Ave, Ave Maria. She asked that a chapel be built in this place, that all be encouraged to pray for God's grace. Ave, Ave, Ave Maria, Ave, Ave, Ave Maria. The lady responded when asked for her name, conceived without sin is the title I claim. Ave, Ave, Ave Maria, Ave, Ave, Ave Maria. Well, join me next time for whatever novena comes next. I can't tell you which one it'll be at this moment, but it'll be good. It'll be blessed. Please subscribe to this video channel. If you like this video, please like it and share it with a friend. And don't miss a day of prayer with us.